I'll go first. I'm David Young, a pastor at the First Presbyterian Church in Newton and one of this year's commissioners. And the General Assembly, it meets every other year. It is the national gathering of commissioners from all of the presbyteries across the country, but it also includes young adult advisory delegates and theological student delegates. It includes ecumenical partners from across the country, across the world, really. And we gather every other year to deal with issues that relate to the work of the Presbyterian Church USA nationally.
Amy Sandlin, the pastor of First Presbyterian Oxford and Delaware Presbyterian. This year, General Assembly was held via Zoom. So 460 some people were on Zoom at one time conducting the business of the national church. Normally it's held in person in a particular city, in a convention hall, which did not happen this year due to COVID-19. So it was also somewhat shortened. It's usually a little over a week long, with committee meetings and plenary sessions, as David said, and there were no committee meetings this year, just plenary sessions.
We also use Zoom for our youth gatherings and meetings. We use them to talk about what we would be doing, how to participate in the General Assembly, how we could get discussions going, give our opinions, what was happening, how to advise, and connect with each other.
Ken Nickel, I'm with the First Presbyterian Church in Boonton, and this was my first time as a commissioner for our presbytery. And the theme this year of General Assembly was From Lament to Hope. And if you think back in June, we were lamenting a lot. We were only several months into the pandemic. This was causing great stress within our communities and around our country. And at the same time, we were dealing with the Black Matters issues. We were lamenting the loss of any number of individuals that were Black lives that had been lost during that time. We went into a period of protest and beyond protest. So there was much going on in the world at that time. So the theme of From Lament to Hope, using again the Matthew 25, was to take us to another place where we become more aware of and accepting of the need for change, the need to address these issues at our church level. And I think that was a main theme through the entire General Assembly.
Next, one of the things that I lamented in this General Assembly's gathering, I had the opportunity to be a commissioner at other times, and so being able to have experienced all that goes on, either when the side conversations occur about the business before the General Assembly or the exhibit hall and all that involves with different people advocating for things, and you get a chance to really find out more about the issues that perhaps you hadn't had a chance to study up on prior to the General Assembly. And frankly, I lamented not having a committee assignment and having that time to really dig deep into some issues of concern to the larger church. So that was one of the areas of lament for me.
Felt that our assembly left a lot of things undone because of the way we had to be on Zoom and the shortened plenary sessions. We had to vote to push quite a bit of business to the 225th Assembly in 2022. And there were several items on there that I really would have liked to have sunk my teeth into and talked about and really voted upon, that I did not get that opportunity to do so.
I found it impactful that some of the discussions were really discussions that reflected what the change that we were focusing on that's going to affect us around the world. And I found it inspirational, and I also found opportunity to take some of that information back to my local church and try to implement those changes as well, that can help other people who didn't have that opportunity to go to General Assembly. So there was a lot to experience and see from a very broad global aspect to a very micro your local church feel. So I think that was the biggest takeaway that I got out of it.
Element to hopeful was the fact that there were so many issues that we were engaging and talking with. I think a lot of times it's easy to just talk about it once and then kind of move on from it and say we're going to cover it. But this time we were talking about so many issues and how we're going to address them, and it didn't feel like it was forgotten or put into the background. It felt very relevant there in the meeting, and that it would be discussed even if it's not right away or as soon as we like. I'm still glad it was acknowledged and we were able to engage with it.
Human level, our need to socially interact. What we didn't get to do, which I miss greatly, was the ability to sit down and Alec had, touched on this before, but our ability to sit down and meet with other commissioners, to learn where they were in their beliefs, to be able to discuss their point of view as well as our own point of view, and just the ability to be able to sit down and have a meal with someone, to break bread with someone face to face. We had none of that, and I think it's something we all missed.
In terms of things that were missed, and something that is near and dear to our presbytery, because the overture originated with us, had to do with what to do about per capita. And that was one of the things that was deemed not to be of such a critical nature that it couldn't be pushed to the next meeting in 2022. And that being said, critical is in the eye of the beholder. Looking down over the list of all the business that could have come to this General Assembly and the decisions that were made to keep this one, not use that, defer or whatever, perhaps we all would have had different lists of what constituted critical business. As it is, a lot of our decisions were simply kind of placeholders, it almost seems, in terms of needing to be ratified at the next General Assembly. So a lot of the decisiveness that might have come out of a General Assembly, that was missed, because just given the nature of how we were set up to do business this year.
Things that impressed me about the General Assembly this year that I guess maybe I was a little surprised. This was a first-time opportunity to do a virtual General Assembly. The folks on the General Assembly committee, I think, did a really marvelous job. The technology we used to be able to address these issues, to be able to vote, was I thought, pretty extraordinary, that we were able to actually get through all the business that we did in a relatively efficient manner, and that we were able to be heard. We had the opportunity to raise questions, to support motions, to talk against motions, to ask questions, all online, all by simply using our computer screens to get ourselves involved in the meeting. And it was quite impressive.
And it's hard to come up with that, that short list, that elevator statement about all the things that did happen. Yes, we did elect co-moderators. Yes, we did re-elect J. Herbert Nelson as our stated clerk. Yes, we did take up statements about Black Lives Matter and racism and some of the key issues of our current situation. Along with those lines, it was an interesting thing that happened, because the initial statement on that talked about Black lives, but also brown and people of color. And in the debate about all that, there was a person, he was, I guess he would call himself of brown, and said, I don't think we should do this, because that tends to dilute the focus, which is on the Black Lives Matter issue. So it was very interesting to hear people talk back and forth upon that. But at the end of it all, is his opinion is what held the day, and so they did not include that language in part of that overture. Even going forward, however, to, of course, want to continue to encourage the local churches and presbyteries to continue to do the important work on combating systemic racism in whatever ways that they could come up with. And I thought that was a strong statement and one of the positive things that came out of this General Assembly.
What I learned from this year's General Assembly is all of the global social impacts that General Assembly is basically responsible for. They are really helping our local Presbyterian, our local churches understand and reshape the way we kind of move forward in today's world. And how to be open-minded and how to understand what our neighbors, where they're from, and be conscious of that. So I think that was one of the largest takeaways for me.
I can make a difference in the church. I think with these kind of things, it's easy to feel that the church this is just the way it's always been, and it's not going to change. And even if I wanted to, like, I'm just one voice. But this really made me see, like, how much we can do if we come together and just have these conversations. I didn't have any votes because I was just an advisory, but I felt really seen and heard when I was advising along with my delegates. And it made me feel very powerful, and that we can change if we really do make the effort to work for it.
What I learned at the General Assembly this year, other than just how the General Assembly functions. We all hear about General Assembly, but actually participating in General Assembly gives you a much greater insight into what goes on. And what I found and what I learned was that there were 460 some commissioners at this General Assembly, and we are a force to be reckoned with. We were able to vote, we discussed, we debated, and decisions were made that really impact our church going forward. And I think this was something that truly impressed me through this whole process. As difficult as this was at times, truly impressed with our country, all of our commissioners from every presbytery in the country coming together and being able to work together.